Jerry Goldsmith. He was a movie film score composer who was an absolute master of his craft. His themes that he would create for movies could be fun and adventurous, strange and surreal, and often very creepy. He had been scoring TV shows and movies from the 1950s all the way to the early 2000s, until his sad passing in 2004, and along the way he gave us some of the most iconic movie themes associated with cinema. Yes, without a doubt, at some stage in our lives we have no doubt hummed a Jerry Goldsmith theme. To me personally, he was at his best in the 70s and 80s, as that seemed to be his heyday in the mainstream, when he was churning out masterpiece after masterpiece. So today we are going to celebrate the life of an amazing movie composer by looking into my own top 10 personal favourite Jerry Goldsmith themes in today's very special episode of My Personal Top 10. So let's sharpen our Rambo knives, look out for face huggers, and keep clear of those pesky gremlins as we check this out. Number 10, The Omen. Wow, what a haunting theme tune this is. If you ever need a theme song that demonstrates impending doom of biblical proportions, then you needn't look further than the Omen theme. Released in 1976, The Omen tells the story of the Antichrist in the form of a small boy called Damien, and to accompany this scary movie, Goldsmith uses scary vocals and chants, with approaching music of doom playing in the background. I love how biblical it sounds. To me, this theme is the dreaded sound of Judgment Day, a sort of the end is nigh, bring out your dead theme tune, which itself sounds old and timeless. Throughout his career, Goldsmith gave us many happy jingles. The Omen was not one of those occasions, as he gave us something truly terrifying. Number 9, Hollow Man. Okay, this one is not so well known in the sense that no one ever really talks about Goldsmith's Hollow Man theme. Heck, I don't think many people talk about Hollow Man full stop. Released in the year 2000, it tells the story of a scientist played by Kevin Bacon, where he and his team of fellow scientists try to create a formula to make human subjects invisible. And after Bacon's character experiments on himself, he is left stuck in an invisible state, where he descends into sadistic and violent madness. I actually really love Goldsmith's theme with this one. It has that Goldsmith sound and sounds spooky, with a sort of high-pitched whistle sound. The sound of the score sounds like what it would be like if you go up against an invisible ghostly enemy, and brings home just how eerie invisibility can actually be. Even if you didn't like Hollow Man, I'd say at least give the soundtrack another shot and see for yourself, or rather listen for yourself, as you will see that although it's one of Goldsmith's last pieces of work, it is still brilliant and effective. Number 8, Explorers. Once again, another Goldsmith theme that just doesn't really get discussed much. In 1985, Goldsmith composed the music for Joe Dante's movie Explorers, which tells the story of 3 pre-teen schoolboys who build a backyard spaceship, after receiving information on how to do so in their dreams, where they embark on an adventure to the stars to make contact with alien life. I love the fun and adventure and childlike innocence of the music. It makes me believe Goldsmith understands kids, or at least understands what it's like to be a child and never lost his inner child. I can't quite explain it, but the music does sound like the kind of music that demonstrates 3 boys building a spaceship in order to go on a wonderful adventure. It has the excitement and anticipation of going on such a quest, along with fresh youthful energy. Explorers is a Goldsmith theme that definitely needs more love. Number 7, First Blood. Okay, this is one of the more subtle and sad themes, but it is equally as powerful. The First Blood theme, or as it's now known as the Rambo theme, demonstrates what I feel is the pain and loneliness of being a war veteran and returning to a world of isolation, with inner turmoil brewing within one's soul. It has the tragedy that comes from the internal scars of war, and how out of place such trauma can make you feel. Don't get me wrong, the First Blood theme can be exciting and action-packed when it needs to be, particularly in the tense moments. But to me, the true genius of the score is Goldsmith's capturing the wounded emotions of Rambo. You can just tell when you're hearing Goldsmith's theme that you're dealing with a tragic man who is misplaced in this world and misunderstood. Released in 1982, First Blood tells the story of Vietnam War veteran John Rambo, played by Sylvester Stallone, who while hiking through a town gets mistreated by the sheriff, which results in a full-on one-man war with the town. The movie's messages could have been misunderstood if given a cheesy score by a composer who just focuses on the action aspects rather than the human ones. But thanks to Goldsmith's efforts, the film is grounded in reality. Number 6. Alien. In space, no one can hear you scream, nor can they hear Jerry Goldsmith's spine-tingling music either. Alien was released in 1979 and tells the story of a spaceship crew getting killed off by an evil alien life form after boarding the ship via impregnating one of the ship's occupants. It's a sort of haunted house movie in space, riding off the new spaceship genre that kicked off with Star Wars. And accompanying the movie is Goldsmith's haunting score. But it's not as bombastic as some of his other horror movie themes. This one's more like a subtle approaching danger. It sounds timeless and even somewhat classical, which you wouldn't expect for a movie which is essentially about a space monster. The more quiet and refined music makes Alien in general very timeless, and after all this time, it hasn't aged. It's as if the music itself is like us the viewer, who are mystified about finding this tremendous, unearthly discovery, which then kicks off into sheer pandemonium. I think it's worth mentioning that Goldsmith did create some more bombastic tunes which didn't end up getting used for Alien, but would end up being used for the movie Outland, which came out 2 years later, which also used other pieces of Jerry Goldsmith's music that was intended for Alien but rejected. Number 5. Star Trek the Motion Picture. Also in 1979, Goldsmith wasn't just making terror music in space, but he was also making joyful, fun, adventurous music in space, as he composed the music for Star Trek the Motion Picture, the movie based on the classic 1960s science fiction series. Now, a lot of people say that Star Trek the Motion Picture is something of a snore fest, while others say it's just a misunderstood masterpiece. A thinker's science fiction movie, if you will, full of mind-opening philosophies. Well, whether or not you think Star Trek the Motion Picture is a space oddity or a space bority, one thing is for sure, Goldsmith's music is right on cue and is in its top form, and it's probably the most Jerry Goldsmith sounding music you'll ever hear, as it's just full of that adventurous joy that you would expect to hear from one of his masterpieces, full of power and majesty. The Goldsmith Star Trek theme isn't the first Star Trek theme, nor is it the last, but to me it's the piece of music that pops into my head when I hear the word Star Trek. And let's be honest, if you're one of those people that thinks Star Trek the Motion Picture is boring, just imagine how much more boring it would have been without Goldsmith's music accompanying it. Number 4. Gremlins. Cheeky tiny creature mayhem. That's the sentence that pops into my head when I hear the Gremlins theme. It's a circus of chaos and playful destruction, while also sounding fierce and monstrous. In other words, the perfect fun piece of music to accompany a children's horror movie. Released in 1984 and once again directed by Joe Dante, Gremlins tells the story of Billy Peltzer, who gets given a mogwai for Christmas and doesn't follow the 3 rules of keeping such a pet, and before you know it, tiny, hideous monsters are terrorizing the town. The movie starts off like a magical children's movie involving a cute creature called Gizmo. It has that sort of E.T. vibe going on, and then the movie just descends into madness with the chaos and comical destruction of the Gremlins. I think that Goldsmith's music really helps with that transition. At the start of the movie, he does use subtle and more majestic fairy tale music. And by the time the Gremlins rag march is on, you know you've gone all the way down the rabbit hole into madness, where anything can happen. It's youthful and energetic and completely loopy, and shows that when it comes to conveying emotions, whether it's wonderment or insanity, then Goldsmith is the go-to guy of scoring. Number 3, Supergirl. Okay, this isn't one of the most popular movies we're talking about here, and yes, I'll admit the Supergirl movie does have many problems, but I don't care. The Jerry Goldsmith music that accompanies the movie is nothing short of sheer perfection. Released in 1984, Supergirl is a spin-off movie to the Christopher Reeve Superman films, and set in the same universe, and intended to expand that universe while failing miserably at the box office. However, it still utilises a heroic theme by Goldsmith, full of wonder and glory. Goldsmith originally was going to compose Superman the movie, but he couldn't due to other engagements, so it was great that he could finally dip his toes, so to speak, into the superhero genre. And I think it's a shame he didn't do more superhero movies, as he perfectly captures the sound and wonderment of heroism. It also has an elegance and romance and enchantment along with youthful innocence, which I think are all musical archetypes that Goldsmith was a master at creating. Supergirl may not be the perfect movie, but to me it's totally worth it just for that wonderful Goldsmith score. Number 2, Total Recall. The Total Recall theme sounds out of this world, along with being futuristic and somewhat mechanical, and I could listen to it all day. Wow, this piece of music has so much power and glory to it. I almost tear up and get goosebumps every time I hear it. Total Recall is an Arnold Schwarzenegger science fiction movie that came out in 1990, where Arnie plays a secret agent who has had his mind wiped, who must travel to a colony on Mars in order to accomplish his mission. Just like Highwayman, the movie was directed by Paul Verhoeven and utilises sadistic violence, while also exploring the surrealism of dreams and reality. And the main march by Goldsmith is nothing short of epic. It demonstrates a mundane man who must find the truth, and in doing so will become an important hero. And yes, I get all that from the theme. It just has an unparalleled glory and nobility and out-of-this-world power about it. The Total Recall theme is music that always touches my heartstrings and gets me in the mood for an adventure, and I love it. Number 1, Poltergeist. Yes, my number 1 slot goes to Poltergeist. Released in 1982, this Steven Spielberg and Tobe Hooper collaboration tells the story of a suburban family whose home gets terrorized by evil spirits, who kidnap the family's little girl Carol Ann by taking her away into another dimension, where her family can only hear her voice through a static TV channel, where they must cross our dimension into the afterlife one in order to get her back. So why does Poltergeist get the number 1 slot? Well, like Gremlins, the music is a slow build-up of things to come, from calm and normal to then bad to worse to then completely insane and a descent into madness, while also capturing so many styles of music. The music at the start of the movie is all idyllic and captures the pleasures of family life. It's happy and full of joyful innocence. But then as the movie progresses, the music gets increasingly creepier and even has a somewhat electrical sound to it, like as if we're exploring unknown boundaries of spirits made up of pure energy and electricity that can invade our homely appliances. But to me, the Goldsmith score reaches its peak in the scene where Carol Ann is sucked into her closet, with that glowing bright light of the other side shining out of the closet. And here's why. Because Poltergeist takes place in your average suburban home, in your average street. But by the time Carol Ann is pulled into the other side, the music is so powerful and almost godlike of biblical proportions, like as if something out of this world and godly is taking place in this otherwise normal home, as if this very house itself is bearing witness to the light of singularity, the light of creation. A vast power beyond our realm of understanding, and it's all conveyed in Goldsmith's powerful, thunderous music. And to me personally, that's why Poltergeist is Jerry Goldsmith's ultimate masterpiece. Well guys, that was my top 10 look into Jerry Goldsmith themes, and I hope you enjoyed it. It seems that everyone has their own personal favourite Jerry Goldsmith theme, as he was very versatile and able to capture many wonderful sounds and themes, and there just hasn't been a composer like him since. Anyway, I'm Minty, and silence is golden, whereas music is Goldsmith. See ya!